Hello, my name is John Dede, professor of political science at the community colleges of Baltimore County, and host of this podcast on Substack of Maryland State Government and Politics. Today, I have the honor of having the Speaker of the Maryland House, Joseline Peña-Melnyk, as far as our guest today. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, John. It's
First
a
thing,
blessing.
first thing I want to talk about is something weird we both have in common. We never met, but we are both graduates of the University of Buffalo. I graduated in 1990 with a master's in political science. You got your law degree in 91. My first question is, why Buffalo?
John, when I first came to this country, my mom, my sister, and I, we lived in Washington Heights, and we did not know a word of English, but it was a community that had a lot of immigrants and Dominicans. And I love New York. And when I finished high school, I told my guidance counselor before I finished, I would like to go to college. No one in my family had ever attended college. And I wanted to go somewhere where, honestly, where I could focus. I had a lot of friends that were having babies young, and my sister, and I just wanted to go somewhere where I can focus. I did not visit the college. I have three kids, and my husband and I had we go went with them and making that choice. I went there without visiting the college, and to be frank, I didn't know that it got so much snow. And for this island girl, John, that was a shocker because I arrived. Actually, I went to college, Buffalo State College, and went to law school to the University of Buffalo. But I arrived in 1985. Do you know what happened in 1985, January of 1985 in Buffalo?
A blizzard, knowing that area.
Uh, yes, it was a huge blizzard. And that was a shocker for me, but it was what I needed. I needed to be focused and just try to do well in school. And that was the place. It was quiet, away from the city.
And people would be from the New York City area, and a lot of it was they couldn't go home on weekends. They had to kind of stay focused. And my memory of Buffalo always will be with the weather, and the UB campus is the spine. And you park your car almost as far away as possible just so you get a good parking spot. Then I had to walk through about 10 different buildings just to get to where I needed to go.
I remember those days.
One thing I want to ask you about, because your life has gone really fast in the last year. A year ago, you were a House of Delegate member thinking about getting reelected. And all of a sudden, the Speaker Jones announces that she is retiring. What was your thoughts when that first happened? And how did you decide, I'm going to go for this thing?
I have a lot of respect for Speaker Joan. As you know, she is the first woman and the first person of color to be Speaker in our history. And she was a really transformative leader and a good friend. I did not know. I was surprised at the announcement. And usually I take my time in making decisions, and I consult with my husband, who's my best friend. This year will be our 32nd year of anniversary. And we went to school together to Buffalo. I met him in law school, actually, when I was 22 years old. And so we usually make decisions together. But when I heard of the announcement, we went to a meeting where it was announced. I actually just decided on the spot, I'm going to go for it. And the reason why is because I have been in the legislature for 20 years. I didn't have a plan to be speaker. I just try to do my absolute best as a member of the health committee, where I have been on the health committee for 20 years. And I started as a member and then became a subcommittee, chair of a subcommittee for public health, and then became the vice chair of the committee and then the chair of the committee. So it was gradually. And over the course of 20 years, I developed a lot of relationships and just try to, prepare for my bills to be someone that When there was a bill, I will bring everyone to the table, whether you were for it or against it, and try to compromise. When my colleagues needed help, I was there and I actually did it. I'm not a transactional leader from my heart, and I never thought I would put my name for speaker. So I just try to do my best all those years. And when this opportunity came up, I said, why not? I feel that I can be a leader that will be inclusive, that will be diverse, that will be respectful, and most of all, if you watch the proceedings on the floor, that will be civil to the other party. And I feel that the way I ran my committee on health, if you watch the proceedings, I have on my committee very active people. I have Kathy Shalega, Matt Morgan, Chisholm, all of them on my committee. And we have good relationships. And the reason is because I believe strongly that their constituency deserve a voice as well. And I know that we are the majority, but I want to listen. And I always gave them the opportunity to state their reasons and their feelings and their positions on the bill. So when I decided to go for it, I thought, maybe my friends will be supportive because they know who I am. And I feel that I can be a leader for this moment as well. I just went for it. And then I told my husband afterwards.
Nice little surprise on the way home.
He was surprised. I called him from the car, but he was very supportive.
That's really important. My next question is thinking ahead to 2027. Two things I want to ask. What are your goals for 2027? And one concern a lot of voters have in general for a variety of races is tax fees and tax increases. Any tax stuff on the table related to fees and increases? And what are your goals for next year?
You know, this past session, my commitment, and I was really clear about that. I was guided by three principles, and that was, affordability, accountability, and opportunity. And we started with my number one priority, which was the utility relief bill, which actually is a very strong bill that will help people reduce their bills, their monthly bills, and in the long term has a lot of benefits. And then we did a big package of bills that dealt with accountability as well, and a lot of housing and you name it, a lot of bills going into, and I say that because that sort of like lays the ground to what I will continue to work on, which is again, affordability. As we look at what's happening in this country right now, the price of gas, because we're in a war, that is almost $5 a gallon. All the tariff that have really put a lot of pressure on those bread and butter issues, the cost of our food, right? Eggs, milk, household goods that people have to transport to get them to us, have risen as well. The price of housing, it's very expensive right now. And I would say that the federal government has a lot to do with that. So I would tell you that for 2027, it is still very early. We're in the early stages, and we are discussing the agenda. And that discussion will take place over a period of months. I have requested from the governor and from the president of the Senate, I requested that we start meeting at the end of August. We'll have our first meeting. We put a small fiscal group together so that we can look at everything. I know we are going to have a huge deficit. And again, it's not unique to just Maryland. And we will be ready. We are going to get input from hundreds of officials, members of the public, and we're going to gather that information and we're going to meet every month. I requested that because I don't want to wait till December to have that important conversation. And everything, is on the table. We're going to have to discuss, education. Most 70%, I don't know if you know this, John, of our budget is education, health, and public safety. And we have, transportation, we have housing, economic development as well. I can tell you that I'm very concerned about the provisions that will go into effect from that big bill, which is, the cuts to Medicaid and all the new requirements. In Maryland, we have 6.5 million people, and we have 1.4 million people on Medicaid. And these are people that are very poor. And we're going to have to deal with that in SNAP as well because we have been cut. So the best, in a very honest way, that I can tell you is that we will have that conversation and we'll try to make those decisions in a way that keeps affordability in mind and those bread and butter issues that my constituents care about.
One of the controversies that came up in the last month was agreeing to do the special session on redistricting.
Yes.
And the thing that I think made it more controversial was a lot of the disabilities advocates said, hey, set aside an hour or two for us and kind of take care of us a little bit. But the train was going to be one thing on redistricting. And my two-part question is, why not tackle the disabilities issue? Also, was there really a need to do redistricting in this sense? Anything that passes can't take into effect till 2028. And that's a long ways off. And a lot of people are like, well, that's not kind of one of the top. I think affordability is like the number one issue for Democrats and even Republicans. But redistricting, I haven't seen as like a top 10 on people's list.
Well, I disagree. I door knock and many of my
Mhm.
colleagues, and that was a really important issue. And the reason, let me take the disability question first. The reason why we did not take it on during special session. The decision, and I know because I sat on health for 20 years, so I know the issue quite well. And many of the bills to protect the disability community I have sponsored, and they know that I have been a friend. The self-direction program, which, in Maryland, which we passed a bill to give families more autonomy and to control their budgets and to do the hiring. And we even passed a bill that allows that they can pay themselves, their family members can pay themselves for the care of their loved ones. So it is a program that services the disability program, 19,000 people. It is a waiver that we got from the federal government. The federal government said you may have this waiver, however, you cannot spend more than it will cost to institutionalize an individual. The cost to institutionalize an individual is, they said, about 200 and something thousand dollars. That program had a budget of 1 point something billion dollars. John, the program today, in almost 5 years, have grown to over $3 billion. Some people, are within that 200 and something thousand dollar budget. But John, we have people that have $500,000 budgets, $1 million budgets. We cannot sustain it. It is 3 point something billion dollars today. It is not that we don't support the disability community. You can see my record and the General Assembly record on it. It is that we must contain the cost so that it can survive and we don't lose the waiver. Now, what I did this session, and I did it with the president of the Senate, is that we put money in the budget. I believe we put $6 million to do an audit of the program, to look at it and tell us what works, what doesn't work. But most importantly, John, I requested that we look at all 49 other states because DC, for example, has a cap, a $75,000 cap per participant. Our program does not have a cap. And let me make it clear because I don't want to start getting emails. I'm not proposing that we have a cap, but I am proposing that we look at everything and to try to come to a compromise that first of all protects that recipient because it's important. I know it's very tough for these families. but I want the program to survive. So that was done. It was very painful to make this decision, especially for us. We have supported the disability community, but the program has grown to over $3 billion. And we have to find what are the best practices are there. Secondly, you asked about the special session and why the need to take on redistricting. House Bill 2100 does the following. It makes it clear that what our Constitution means, meaning Article 3, Section 4, that it means what it means by legislative district. Because for 150 years or more, Article 3, Section 4, John, has only applied to legislative districts. When you look at Article 3, Section 4, you see that it talks about the Maryland General Assembly. It talks about how we have 141 delegates, 47 senators. Section 2 goes on to discuss the legislative districts. There is nothing in there that talks about congressional districts. In 2022, Judge Battaglia ruled that Article 3, Section 4 applied to congressional districts. We have never done that. There were 3 constitutional amendments in 1969, 1970, 1972 dealing precisely with this issue. And the voters spoke and said that Article 3, Section 4 applies to legislative district. So what we're saying is that this language and the voters, John, are going to have the ultimate, they're going to make the ultimate decision. They're going to vote on November 3rd on whether Article 3, Section 4 applies to legislative districts only. And basically what we try to do was to eliminate any ambiguity that we have in the language, because that section has never been applied to constitutional, to congressional districts. So it just is basically clarifying the language and looking at the legislative district of history of 150 years.
One issue that's come up a lot recently, the last few years, is the issue of CADE funding and the CADE formula for community colleges. A couple of years ago, CADE took a little bit of a hit after finally getting fully funded. Where do you see the future of CADE funding and increasing that for community colleges next year? Because the 4-year schools always get the choice meal on the menu. And it always seems like the 2-year community colleges, they get a lot of leftovers.
Well, I have to tell you, the FY27 budget, we continue to have historic funding in public education, right? That was important. For higher education, we invested 2.5 billion in higher education institutions. The community colleges will experience lower budget growth as we recognize our need to be fiscally responsible. I know that it's an important issue, and we'll continue to discuss it. Everything is on the table, John, and we're going to look at all the formulas. We have to make cuts. We have to look at revenues, and that's my best answer, and it's an honest answer, because again, the conversation it's about next year General Assembly are still in very early stages. But we will be having it. And the community colleges are well represented. I know the lobbyists, they come and meet with me, and I meet with them. And I've been very supportive of community colleges. But again, everything is on the table.
Who do you consider your political North Stars? Politician, mayor, past, even present, the people that you would like to walk in their footsteps, or the people that
Excuse me, I could not hear you well. The
no problem.
internet
Who
was
do
a
you
little fuzzy.
consider who do you consider your political North Stars, the politicians, political leaders from the past or present, that you have a special admiration for that you'd like to be able to walk in their footsteps?
I have to say, John, and it's funny that you asked that question today, precisely, on August 12th. I am going to go see two of my mentors. And one of them is former Senator Dolores Kelly. I'm going to go visit her. I don't know if you know Dolores Kelly. And she was just an amazing human being, very smart, African American woman, PhD, just very accomplished. And then I'm also going to go visit today. I chose today to do that. Former Senator Shirley Nathan Pulliam, who is a trailblazer, especially when it comes to public health. And the reason why I admire and actually love and consider them as my moms is because these are women that are trailblazers in their own rights, but are also extremely intelligent. They're women that are not afraid to meet the moment, that have left it all out there and they're kind. They're just very kind people and very smart. And always they took their time to welcome me and to give me advice and without judgment and to be very patient with me. And also there's another woman. Her name is actually she was the chair of the health committee, Shane Pendergrass, as well, who is my sister from another mister as well, who taught me a lot on how to manage the health committee, how to take a bill and have an open mind and look at all the sides and welcome everyone to the table, and taught me a lot about health insurance as well.
One of the issues that's come up the last few years, and this relates to senior citizens, as far as with the General Assembly, is a lot of retired state employees have lost their prescription drug coverage. And a lot of them are currently pressing the legislature and Department of Budget and Management to permit retirees who were hired before July 2011 and retired after 2020 to have access to HRA benefits. This was an arbitrary cutoff set by the General Assembly for a variety of reasons, and it excludes around 6,000 retirees from receiving the benefits that others get. By some calculations, this would cost the state about $5.5 million per year through a variety of estimates. And I know that the budget is tight, but it seems like a small expenditure to help these people who really did a lot to help the state and took a lot less money to do this. And the other issue is the number of people on Medicare Part D plans offer by VIA Benefits. The state Medicaid Part D benefits manager, VIA Benefits selects plans that basically they offer people that are approved by Medicare. And last year they offered only 5 of the 10 plans approved by Medicare for Maryland. So that was a problem in the picture smaller for people. And the VIA Benefits selection
You're
criteria.
going in and out.
Oh,
You're
okay.
going
I
in and out.
apologize. But basically, the problem with a lot of this that's going on is a lot of seniors feel that the situation regarding Medicare, as far as for the VIA benefits program, and also as far as the prescription drug coverage, needs a lot of work as far as things being done. What would you propose doing next session to help some of these seniors out?
The U.S. Supreme Court declined to review the lower court ruling that Maryland is not contractually bound to provide lifelong subsidies for the prescription drug benefits. I would say that the state of Maryland, contract existed between the state and our employees for benefits, and we had to make those changes and make those adjustments because we knew that the federal cap under the Inflation Reduction Act, alongside the what we provided in the transition and reimbursement account, that the retirees will still have some benefits. And we made those decisions. Again, we have to look at the budget, and we make offerings, like I am actually going to be part of that system. But I understand as well that the state has a lot of responsibility and that things can change. It wasn't a decision that we made just to make it without thinking about the consequences of it. But we knew that there were options, especially on the Part D with the federal government. So I know that they were upset, but these decisions are tough. We have to be responsible with, the budget. And it was important for us to look at everything and do what was best for the state and for the people as well. It was a tough decision to make, but we had to do it. I can't sit here and tell you that we're going to be touching that issue because we have so many issues on the table. We really do.
You talked about the budget, and a lot of people are concerned about it. Has anyone looked at possibly re-looking at the blueprint part of the budget? Because that is an exorbitant cost right now, and a lot of people say that that ought to be backed off some. Would you consider paring back the blueprint some or giving a pause to that next session?
We actually asked for a study for the blueprint to tell us what's working, what's not working, and so that it can inform us how to proceed moving forward. So we that study is due in the next few months, and we will look at it and see where we can make adjustments and what's working. The blueprint is a significant commitment because public education is important. However, again, 70% of our budget is not just it's not just the K to 12. It is healthcare as well. It is public safety, and it is expensive. You have to take care of people. One, my constituents want affordability, but they also want to have access to healthcare. They want, good roads. They want good schools, and it's finding that delicate balance. But we will wait for the study and we will make the decision intelligently as we move ahead, just like we're waiting for the study for the disability community as well. And that is how we make decisions. We don't make them on the fly. We make them, we're very conscientious, and my colleagues are very conscientious. And, this job is supposed to be part-time, John. And I can tell you that I work 7 days a week. And we have a lot of people in the General Assembly, in the Department of Legislative Services, the library, people that are committed to serving, to making sure that people's voices are heard. And we will consider everything as we move forward. I know it's important, and I know that people are suffering. These times that we're living are unprecedented. And, the federal government has put a lot of pressure on the states. In Maryland alone, John, more than 30,000 people have lost their jobs. They live in Maryland. More than 30,000. In October alone, 10,300 people. I have to go, John, because I have my ride who's waiting for me. They arrived at 10:30, and I have to get going because otherwise I won't make it on time. I have to drive an hour to Baltimore County.
Okay. Well, thank you for your time. I appreciate it. Take care and have a good day.
You too, and thank you for being with me today, okay?
You're welcome.
Take
Bye.
care. Bye-bye.